Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, out on another exploration. I'm in West Sussex. I'm at the foot of the wonderful South Downs on a beautiful December morning, and I'm on the road between Treyford and Elsted, just west and south of Midhurst. And I'm joined once again by Andrew Shaxson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Richard.
Lovely to see you again. We are investigating the story of a church that, past it you wouldn't know it was here. 101 years it existed, came and went almost in a puff of smoke. Is that a sort of accurate portrayal?
Well, there no doubt was a puff of smoke, because actually part of it was blown up.
Ah, there we go.
Which I will relate in a minute
Yes.
if you'd like.
Yeah, no, definitely. We want to find out its demise.
Yes.
So we're standing on a stretch of road where there's there's a house behind us, but there's not really a community here. But the story of the church is interesting because it was built because of three other churches, and their description of it being them being mean.
They were mean, yes. Even Queen Victoria described they were mean. She actually wrote somewhere that she gave her blessing to the replacement of those three mean churches, and for a commodious and beautiful church to be put in their place.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say it was a commodious church, because it was a lot bigger than the three churches which it replaced. It was 116 feet long, which, when you consider the size of the parish, was quite overkill. And but whether it was a beautiful church is, I think, very open to doubt.
Particularly when you compare it to the three, although smaller churches, that it effectively was replacing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's walk up towards where the church was, and perhaps, Andrew, you could tell us the three churches in question that this church, St. Peter's, was replacing.
Well, it was replacing St. Andrew's at Didling, which I believe you have already filmed,
That's
Richard.
right, we have a video on that.
St. Paul's at Elsted, likewise you have filmed, and St. Mary's at Treyford, which is now just a ruin. Where we are standing, we've just been walking up the path to what would have been the door to the church in the southwest corner of it, and that door would have taken you into a structure which, as I said, was 116 feet long, with the arrangement of a choir and a chancel and two aisles and a large spire at the the northwest corner, which was 120 feet high.
Wow, quite a high spire then.
Oh, it was. And whilst at the present time, you can see that this church has got trees which are up to 170 years old around it. That is the age of the point from 1849, when it was opened, to now. When it first built, it stuck out a mile.
Yes.
Because it was on a high point, and it was the only feature on that high point.
Yes.
And it must have been quite a sight.
Yes, and in a way, if you think back to early churches, when early churches were erected and everyone else had timber-framed houses, same sort of effect. The church would have been a thing of beauty that people would have seen and was substantial.
Well, this one, I don't ever think it was a thing of beauty.
Right.
And what is more, on the day it was opened on the 20th of October 1849, and it had been raining hard for some time before it was opened. And on the actual day of the dedication of the church, the heavens opened. It was ghastly weather, and it is related in a newspaper article at the time, and goodness, could they write newspaper articles at that time, that everybody was soaked, and that the two bishops, the Bishop of Chichester and the Bishop of Oxford, Samuel Wilberforce, who lived near here at Seaford College, they met, or there were 20 or more rectors and vicars from neighbouring parishes here.
Gosh.
And they all piled into the church with no doubt the great and the good and other hangers-on, and the dedication service took place. But maybe that very wet day was, in some ways, it foresaw the future of the church, because within 40 years major rebuilding work had to take place to it, and by the 1920s, 1930s it was in serious structural decay.
And 101 years from when it opened, it no longer existed.
Well, it got to such a state that by the mid-40s, the foundations were failing, and eventually the insurers said, we can't insure this church any longer for public use, and so it had to be abandoned. And they had to fall back on the two extant churches of the village, that is the one at Elsted and the one at Diddling, and use those. But this one left them with a headache. What were they going to do with it?
Yes, whilst we determine what they are going to do with it, let's walk round the footprint of the church itself, just to give people an idea of the size and the scale. Of course, we've got graves that are still being utilised here.
So, very much so. I'm just walking over a very new grave. It is an open church. It is an open graveyard. There are 4 open graveyards in the parish.
Oh right, are there? Oh,
which
okay.
is possibly rather an excessive number, but 3 of the 4 are regularly used for burials. We are standing where the actual spire would have stood in the, as I said, the northwest corner of the church.
So bells could have been rung from this point.
Bells were rung from this point. Yes. I don't know how many bells were in it, but there were bells in it. But as I say, the trees have just grown up over the years. Obviously, some of them have been planted, some of them are self-sown.
Yes, a lot of beech and a few yews that we've seen. Let's walk down, which would have been the north side of the church. Was there a north door? Do you know?
I don't know. I've never. There is a plan. There is a small scale, very small scale plan of a church, but nothing which sort of no architect's plan that I'm aware of. Right. Which is rather unfortunate, because there obviously would have been one. Yeah. The clerk of works would have had to have worked off something. And the clerk of works actually lived in the small cottages that you referred to when you started. There were 2 cottages built adjacent to this church for the use of the people who were working on it.
Oh, is he built for that main purpose?
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. And talking of the building and the reconstruction, there's an interesting story you were telling me as we now got down, I presume, by the West End, which
East End.
The East End, sorry, which may have had a large window, like the Victorians like to put.
It did, yes.
But there was a story with the rebuilding works, or the renovation works, with a local feline, shall I say, that you were telling me. The word dalliance comes to mind. Oh yes. Well, it appears that the 1880s rebuilding, the architect had a weakness that some males have for actresses, and it got to such a state, and he was a married man, and the whole thing became absolutely tragic, and he eventually killed himself. But whether that was part of the curse of St. Peter's, I don't know. But it was somehow typical of the sort of history this church has had. I don't want to directly blame the church, but there you are. No.
Interestingly enough, there is a very simple tombstone here to an artist who is quite well known, called Paul Mars, M-A-Z-E. He was a Frenchman who came and made Treyford, the neighbouring village, his home, and he is buried here. But his paintings make considerable sums of money today.
If you're one of those lucky enough to own one, look after it.
Indeed, yes.
Let's stroll back round past the East End, back onto the south wall. I mean, it's a shame that there's nothing left. It's always nice to have a ruin of some description, even if it is only a wall to sort of help paint your imagination.
Well, I suspect the decision was made to take it all away, and indeed it was all taken away. The actual coins, the cut stonework was Caen stone from France,
right,
but the rest was stone from literally a hole in the ground about a quarter of a mile to the east of here.
Oh right, so
and it
local
was mined from there.
Gosh.
And it was poor quality, which was a main reason why it deteriorated. But that stone was taken and has been put under tracks around here. It has been used as footings to buildings, but a lot of it was removed. A lot of the body of the church was taken down stone by stone, and what could be reused was sold or otherwise recycled.
Yes.
But the spire was considered to be too unsafe to take down.
Oh.
And so the Royal Engineers, no less, were
Oh, really?
invited to blow it up.
Gosh, to blow it up.
And the BBC made a film of this, which unfortunately seems to have disappeared.
Oh,
I
shame.
have looked for it, but no, there's no sign of it. And they duly set their charges, and everybody stood back, and the BBC's cameras started to run. Set off, a lot of noise. All the jackdaws came out of the spire. A finial on the top fell off at a drunken angle. The buttresses fell away from the side of the spire, but the spire stood there.
Stood there.
Everybody stood back, and about 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, they walked very gingerly up to it, put more charges around it,
gosh.
and that time it did work.
It did come down.
But I don't think it was as unsafe as they said it was.
Gosh, well, it's an amazing story. A church that came and went in 100 years here on the South Downs. And you can, if you are a walker and you happen to be strolling along, come off the South Downs and visit the site. And why not? There's benches all around. It's very peaceful now. Andrew, thank you very much for telling us about this. And in ways, this story joins up the dots of the Diddling Church and the Elstead in the restoration of the smaller mean churches, as they were called.
Yes.
And actually then this one is the one that's no longer here. So it's quite a fascinating story.
Hubris and nemesis, I think. Yes.
Thank you so much for these 3 videos. It's been absolutely brilliant. Much appreciated. Do come by, have a look, investigate for yourself, leave a comment, subscribe, all usual, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, I'm going to enjoy the December sun. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Thanks, Andrew.